Has your cat or dog got itchy, scratchy, red or sore looking eyes? Could well be conjunctivitis. Want to know more? I'm Dr. Cath Watson and this is the PD Pet Care Vlogs. So what is conjunctivitis? Conjunctivitis is the inflammation of the conjunctiva. The conjunctiva is just the lining of the eye, so that's the pink part when you pull your eyelid down and can see the pink sort of fleshy part of your eye. Pretty similar to your gums and the lining of your nose. It's known as a mucous membrane because it produces mucus, which helps keep it healthy and most of the things that cause us problems out of the way, helps flush all of that out of your eyes, along with the tears that your eyes also produce. So when that conjunctiva becomes inflamed, the itis part of it, conjunctivitis, means inflammation, then we start seeing some changes. So that's things like redness, they might get really swollen, there might be a discharge, they're often very pink looking, so sometimes you'll hear conjunctivitis referred to as pink eye. And sometimes they can become really painful and often quite itchy as well as part of that. So that's the symptoms you're likely to see. In a cat or a dog, they're often squinting, they may be rubbing at it, so you may notice some fur is missing from around their eyelids as well. And like I say, there may be watery discharge running down the inside corner of the eye, or you might see some yellow or green or white or sort of greyish looking chunky discharge as well. Now there's lots of reasons or lots of causes of conjunctivitis. It's also really common. So PD Insurance can tell us that in 2023, conjunctivitis was the 4th most popular claim for cats and the 10th for dogs. So that's a pretty common problem that we're seeing out there. So why does it happen? Like I say, a whole bunch of reasons. The most common is probably allergies. And then things like infections, so bacterial infections, viral infections. Sometimes it's things like foreign bodies, so getting a grass seed stuck in your eye is a pretty good reason for the tissues to become inflamed and itchy and swollen. In dogs, as I say, the most common would be allergies, and it's common in any breed. Just like us getting hay fever, dogs love being out there running in the grass, sticking their heads into all sorts of stuff. So the opportunities for allergies to develop is huge, but it does seem to be quite common in young dogs in particular that the eyes will end up affected. Allergies can also obviously affect other areas of the body, but particularly the skin, armpits, feet, ears. In cats, however, allergies actually are less common. It doesn't mean they can't occur, but easily the most common problem that causes conjunctivitis in cats is a virus, and typically it's herpesvirus. Now there's a whole bunch of different herpes viruses out there. This one is cat specific, so you don't have to be concerned about catching herpes virus from your cat. Most cats end up coming in contact with herpes virus when they're quite young, and often it causes sort of full-blown cold-like symptoms, same as we'd expect to get. So runny eyes, sneezing, runny noses, are often really gunged up, so it's what we'd call cat flu. In many cases, cats will appear to clear that virus and may never have a problem again in their life. But there's a reasonable percentage of cats that when they get stressed or are living under stressful conditions, and that might be as simple as they need to go to the cattery for a week or two when you're away on holiday, that level or there's another cat in the neighbourhood that's perhaps hanging around and causing them a bit of stress on their territory, sometimes we'll see that virus break out again. So it's not that they've caught a new version of it, but this particular virus likes to hang around in nerve endings and it'll sit there dormant for a long period of time, and then there'll be something that triggers it, so particularly stress in cats, that it breaks out. And typically eyes are one of the really common sites that we will see that virus causing problems again in future. So they may or may not have a runny nose and sneezing and so on with it, but typically they will have runny eyes. They're often sore, they can be quite swollen. Other infections are also relatively common in cats, so there's a bacterial infection called chlamydia and another one called mycoplasma, both of which can cause really swollen, sore eyes, and in some cases these eyes can just look horrific. Sometimes you can't even see the eyeball anymore because that conjunctival tissue is so swollen it literally bulges out and the eyelids have trouble closing over it as well. So infections more common in cats than allergies, but again allergies can occur as well. When we go to diagnose conjunctivitis in a cat or a dog, first thing we do, have a good look around. Is there any damage to the surface of the eye, so the cornea? Has there been a scratch? Is that the reason that the conjunctiva has become inflamed? It's secondary to another wound, because the treatment for that can be a wee bit different. Is there a foreign body in there, and particularly under the third eyelid? So we as humans don't have a third eyelid, but it's that extra eyelid that you'll see flick up from time to time from the corner of the eye that's also covered in conjunctiva. So we like to have a look behind that and under all the eyelids to make sure there's nothing stuck in there, making sure that actually the eyes are producing enough tears and that they're not dry eye, because again the conjunctiva will become inflamed if it doesn't stay nice and moist and can't rid itself of all those irritants that are out there, particularly on windy days. So we check for dry eye, and then if everything else is ruled out but we're still not sure, then sometimes we'll take a wee sample of cells, usually just with a cotton bud, have a look on a slide or send it off to the lab to see if we can identify what's going on there, and then treatment will be appropriate to whatever the underlying problem is. Most of the time treatment's going to involve topical ointments, so stuff that you put in the eyes, or drops. Sometimes it will also involve some systemic medication if we're concerned there's something else going on, and particularly those cats with herpesvirus, if it's a recurrent problem for them, they may need some additional immune support there to help them manage the symptoms essentially of that infection. In some cases in cats with herpesvirus we do see an additional problem develop, which is called a sequestrum. So this is affecting the cornea, the surface of the eyeball itself, where essentially a dead piece of tissue ends up trapped in there and they can't get rid of it. So they'll end up with a sort of brown or black piece that doesn't look like it should be there, and that will just end up causing chronic inflammation. But that's a whole nother topic. So conjunctivitis, itis just means inflammation. Conjunctiva, that lining of the eye, whole bunch of causes, but usually relatively straightforward to get on top of. So any concerns, please go and see your vet.